Alright, so homeboy hit me up and yeah, I apologize for the wrist here. I got a little carried away with a machete and tried to chop my arm off. So everybody does that, right? Alright, so homeboy hits me up and he says, here's my situation. Had part of my colon removed. And I've lost considerable amount of muscle mass. And I said, okay. He said, I'm looking for something to help me regain my muscle. I said, easy enough. So upon a little digging, we find out that, well, he had brain cancer, he's had epileptic seizures. Kept digging and found out that he had diverticulitis. And I said, well, when did you have your gallbladder removed? And he said when he was 17. I thought it may be imperative that you understand how the body works before we go to cutting things out, and if you have had your gallbladder removed, how important it is to properly deal with it. Okay? So basically, here's what happens. In the colon, all right, when we are digesting things, when Bob here starts to eat, right? That's the beginning of digestion. Chewing food completely, making sure everything's dead, your saliva is alkaline. Then what happens is as we chew the food up, it breaks down, goes into the stomach. The stomach then it has this acid, right, in the stomach. Now, the stomach acid helps to further break everything down. From there, you have the colon. All right, before we get into the colon though, you have the liver, which is, right down in here somewhere, and it releases bile. Now, your gallbladder is the spigot, like that comes out of your house that water comes out of. Whenever we eat and we're digesting, the gallbladder turns on and releases bile into this pre-digested sludge to alkalize it, to make it available to be absorbed, so all the nutrients can be absorbed alkaline into the bloodstream. Now, the bloodstream has to maintain a pH of 7.3 to 7.4. Now, on a pH scale, you got 14, that's very alkaline. All right. On the bottom, you have 0, that's really acidic. In the middle, you have 7, this is neutral. In order for the gallbladder, or in order for nutrients to be absorbed without making the blood acidic, we need the gallbladder to release bile made by the liver. Once the gallbladder was removed or is removed, what happens is the spigot is on all the time. Well, before long, you run out of water, or the water company comes and turns the water off because they're like, this is ridiculous. So your liver stops giving this bile for absorption. Now is where it hits the fan. After about a year, usually gallbladder removed, so you've got about 12 months. You feel freaking awesome, right? Cured you, fixed the problem, doctor was a miracle, hell, ready to roll. Well, then you start to get gas, bloating, indigestion, heartburn, hinal hernia. You get all these problems because you can't absorb nutrients into the colon. You'll start to get that big protruding belly, and you will have various other problems, right? Gout, things like that. Now, that's the beginning. Then what happens is diverticulitis, which is, if you look at the colon, you'll see that through this 26 to 38 feet of intestines that you have, it'll start to get pockets in it. Now, these pockets are actually going to house bacteria called diverticuli. Okay? Diverticuli are really not the best thing for you to be having in your colon. So what happens is that starts to eat through the lining of the colon, and you start to get really serious issues. Also, what happens is we have a systemic candida infection that gets into the bloodstream. This is all going to be relative and important in a minute, because one thing leads to another. Now, this happened when he was 17, right? The next thing that happened was he started to have epileptic seizures. Okay? Now, this is due to poor digestion, and this is caused by what we call a systemic candida infection, or yeast in the blood, generally speaking, that breaks the blood-brain barrier. This also, having this removed, is what will cause fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. The ability to absorb your calories, but the inability to break down and absorb nutrients. This is a bad thing for health, right? Because the integrity of the body is made up of raw materials that must be absorbed in order to construct the tissues of the human body. When those are degraded or not present, then patchwork has to be done. If you get a hole in the side of your house, or the house ages and starts to wear out, you have two options. You can either use new material to rebuild, or you can use what you have around the house to rebuild. Now, most people don't have a whole lot of good stuff laying around the house to rebuild the house with, because, you wait till it's time to do it. When the body is forced to rebuild with old materials, then you get patchwork jobs, and things start to slowly degrade and debilitate, and before long, well, you're screwed. So, because of the lack of ability to absorb nutrition, you have this candida buildup, which is naturally occurring in our colon. Your yeast and candida is supposed to be there. But you have something else called probiotics, which are your good bacteria that create lactic acid. This lactic acid, it keeps regulated the bad bacterias. Okay, so you got good bacteria regulating bad bacteria like yeast and candida, okay? Same thing, they're synonymous. When we take massive antibiotics, like when we get our gallbladder taken out, and then we can't reproduce, especially if you're missing your appendix. Your appendix is there as a tail on the end of your colon, right? That little tail is there to house your good bacteria, your probiotics. When they cut that out, now your probiotics, whenever you get food poisoning, everything shoots out. Sorry, no more probiotics to rebuild and regenerate. There's no housing down there. So it is a protected place that God put there, because God's really smart, to house probiotics so they can repopulate the good bacteria after food poisoning or something of that nature. Now, once the appendix is no longer in play, or the gallbladder has been taken away and the good bacteria are no longer rebuilding, then you have an overgrowth of candida that can work its way into the bloodstream. The bloodstream is a really good place for candida to live. It likes there. This then gives off a toxin that creates fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. You're sleepy, you're tired, you feel like crap, and you don't know why. It doesn't make sense. The more food you eat, the better you feel, because it puts the candida basically to sleep after it eats, but then it grows and populates and things get worse. Now, after this, once it breaks the blood-brain barrier, you start to have seizures or epilepsy. Now, once that happened with him, brain cancer set in. Remember, cancer is a mutated cell that continues to regenerate. This is a malignant cancer. We don't worry about benign cancers because that one just stops, and eventually your immune system should envelop that and take it out. But your immune system's not working properly because it doesn't have the energy necessary to work properly, right? From there, the brain cancer, you had chemo, you had the issues or things that happen whenever, and then you have part of his colon removed. The cancer was cut out of his brain, and we still don't have gallbladder. He was on pain pills. He said he was on so much medication, he was walking around just doped out of his mind all the time, and he just cold turkey quits them all. Smartest freaking thing you could ever do. I didn't say that. Yeah. So he comes off all these medications. He gets the feeling good. He's like, man, I'm all right now. Well, then he's in the gym, and what happens is diverticulitis, boom, hits him. What had happened is after they took the colon, or before they hadn't taken the colon out yet. So he got seizures, brain cancer, then diverticulitis had set in because of the lack of the gallbladder. All right, it all started with the lack of gallbladder. But then when the diverticulitis creates the pockets where the bad bacteria has a house just like the good bacteria has a house, and now we got a war. Diverticulitis can hurt like you've been stabbed in the stomach. So now he's got muscle loss because he went from feeling great to boom, one day, stabbed in the stomach, right? Now, he comes to me and he's like, okay, this is what's happened, and we've got to this point. So, moving forward, here's what we do, and here's what every doctor should always tell anyone that ever gets their gallbladder removed. When this happened, if the doctor would have said, sir, by the way, now that your gallbladder's been removed, in about 7 to 10, maybe 12 months, you need to take a digestive enzyme with ox bile. This will prevent you from having further problems down the road, because that's going to be the closest thing to human bile that you can possibly get that will alkalize everything, and you will then be able to absorb your nutrients the way you're supposed to, as long as you take it with every meal. Now, you're never going to produce your own bile again, so you have to take this all the time. But God's honest truth. I got a bottle around here. It's called Thirsting Compound. It's dirt cheap. It'll cost you like $15 a month if you take one with each meal. It's a hell of a lot better than cancer, seizures, muscle loss, diverticulitis, and going through chemo. So, ox bile will play the part of the gallbladder. It will stop the gas. It will stop the bloating. It will reverse the digestive issues, the whole 9 yards. Now that we're in this situation, here's best options to reverse the damage that has been done, if at all possible. Now, I must go ahead and say that none of these products have been evaluated by the FDA. They're not intended to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any disease. This is simply my opinion after what I've seen over 17 years in this business and how we have found the most effective ways to help human beings overcome all these situations. Now, don't take my word for anything. Study everything I say. I could be a dumb redneck from Alabama lying to you. So, with that all said, let's move forward. All right, you got the gallbladder issue. We'll deal with that with the ox bile. A digestive enzyme, a good one, will have ox bile. If you still have your gallbladder, you don't take ox bile, but perhaps maybe a month or two, so your gallbladder can heal, but then you stop. If you don't stop, then you run the risk of getting addicted to this, and then because the liver says, why would I make bile when you got bile in your food? And we don't want that to happen. We don't want you to have gas and bloating and all that crap when you don't take ox bile. So get a good digestive enzyme if you need one for a short period of time. Let your gallbladder heal. How do you heal the gallbladder? If it were a perfect world, one could use MK6, MK677 to boost growth hormone. Growth hormone is going to give your body its the instructions as to how to heal, rebuild, regenerate glands and things like the gallbladder. Now, that's what you would do if you still had it. Now, if you don't have the gallbladder, it's been removed and you need to heal anything anyway, MK677 is very important. Now, because he's had diverticulitis, we don't want to start with MK677. It can be kind of rough on the stomach, and we don't want to go there. So, he needs to go with a THRP2, right? That's going to be very important with a BPC157. Now, this is not for him, this is for an experiment, and he has to go with his doctor. His doctor has to tell him to do that. But his doctor did tell him to come get some MK677, which, you know what I'm saying? You gotta be careful with it. I would recommend GHRP2, BPC157 in that situation. Also, now that's with his doctor's permission. Don't get past that, all right? You two, back up. Now, also what we have to do to correct the immune system and get the immune system to identify this as foreign and start to kill it out, because over half your immune system lies in your colon. When it acts right, diverticulitis can't survive. So there's a product called MPS-70. If you have diverticulitis, you start with 70 and you will eventually graduate up to the MPS 200X. That means it takes 70 gallons of aloe vera to make 1 ounce of that one. It takes 200 gallons of aloe vera to make 1 ounce of the other one. If you get too much too quick, you will have an attack, is what it feels like. In reality, what's happening is your immune system is adapting so quickly, and it's starting to identify the diverticuli as the evil that it is, and this happens so quickly and so abruptly. Well, hell, you get pain. It's actually just working. But you can do it with a slower pace with MPS 70, and I have seen absolute magic happen with this that honestly, you could not possibly relate to any of our products because, well, the FDA hasn't approved them for this, and we don't cure anything. We just allow the body to do what it's supposed to. God made your body to heal. We're just giving the raw material necessary to do the job. Now, when the immune system can communicate properly, right? Let's say you have an autoimmune disorder. You got killer cells, right? And you got macrophages. All right. So you have, better yet, let's look at it like this. You have generals and you have soldiers. when you have an autoimmune disorder, the general can't communicate with the soldiers. These are communication lines. They get broken down. So the soldiers do what soldiers do. They either go out and attack the wrong thing, being domestic material, or they blow up their own building and they start fights in the bar, or they do nothing when the general's not around. They just go, I don't know what that is. You know what it is? Nope, don't know what it is. Let it live. So they just allow the diverticuli to grow because they can't identify it, or they don't have the energy to, or they don't give a crap. So what we do when we put MPSs, these communication lines are called mucinose polysaccharides, right? When we reconnect these, general calls up the soldier and says, hey boys, regroup. What are you doing? Number one, we do not attack foreign entities or domestic entities. We only attack foreign entities. So stop attacking what you're not supposed to attack and start attacking the daggum diverticuli and the cancer. The only reason cancer can survive is because your immune system is not identifying it as a foreign entity and killing it. Now, with all that said, you have the MPS goes in and corrects the immune system. The immune system starts to kill and destroy the diverticuli. This is a good thing. Now, the muscle loss has to be combated, and the seizures are caused by the systemic candida in the bloodstream that has been allowed by the lack of a gallbladder. So we put the ox bile in there and we start to absorb our nutrients again. Then it is imperative that the MPS is allowed to do its job. And then one of the coolest things in the world to deal with the candida that has invaded the bloodstream is once MPS 200, once the diverticuli is under control, we will then start a program of IS3, which is immune support 3 that boosts killer T and macrophage activity by up to 700% and reduces, it increases killer T and macrophage activity by up to 700% in as little as 7 days. Now that there is no autoimmune issue, there can now be the elimination and removal of the stuff that's not supposed to be in the blood, which is going to consist of the stuff that causes the seizures to begin with, which is candida. And another thing that goes in and directly kills candida is called the terminator. It is a natural antibiotic, antifungal, antimicrobial, antibacterial, kills everything. That's why it's called terminator. Now, we're going to need to get all the dead crap out of the system as we do this. That's where MSM plus C comes in. So we start out with MPS 70. Then we're going to go to the 200X. Once that has gotten this under control, we're then going to go and boost the immune system with IS3, which boosts killer T and macrophage activity, and then we're going to eliminate the die-off with MSM plus C. Oh, the IS3 and the terminator. Both of these are going to kill everything out, and this is going to get rid of all of the dead candida. So once we have this to deal with, this will no longer be a problem, that'll no longer be a problem. And then the gallbladder is dealt with there, diverticulitis is gone. Now we just deal with the muscle loss. Now, because he had his colon, part of his colon removed in this process, we also want to incorporate your BPC 157. GHRP2 is going to boost growth hormone. So you've got right here with MPS 70 and then 200, you're also going to want BPC 157 and then some GHRP2 or 6, either or. And what that's going to do is that's going to go in and boost growth hormone, so everything, all these raw materials from these get to where it's going in all the foods that you eat. Now, the next thing is to now rebuild, reconstruct, and regenerate muscle, which can be done in the process of all of this with pretty much ease. for his situation, Rad 140 is going to be the best because it has been studied to offset the degradation of the brain by Alzheimer's, dementia, and strengthen the integrity of the brain. So it's also going to act as a neurocognitive booster. So now we've got the brain issue being rebuilt, reconstructed, and dealt with from the damage done by the cancer, the surgery, and the epileptic seizures. Now, once that will also have the anabolic effect. Now, this is in a perfect situation, in a perfect world where your doctor will allow all of this, right? So you got to ask him about it, or you got to do your research on your fish, frog, monkey, mouse, saber-tooth, spider cricket. Always do your research with newsarms.com because, hell, we're the only people that got products that work, I think. Not the only ones, but honestly, it saved you a lot of time, a lot of heartache, a lot of struggle by not going through bad product. Now, I would also strongly consider another thing called SR9009 for anyone that needs to lose body fat, increase muscle mass. RAD will only need to be taken for short periods along with growth hormone releasing peptide or MK677 if you can even take that because of the colon issue. Now, with that said, it's going to be very important to also take a product called HEART. HEART is there to rebuild the cardiovascular system and give the body all the nutrients it needs. It has been deprived and robbed for a long period of time. This will balance blood pressure. This balances cholesterol. And this is all hearsay from a redneck in Alabama because I don't know what hell I'm talking about. Like, I ain't never, I've seen this work. But it's just by happenstance because we can't prove it in FDA trials because the FDA will never study a natural supplement because there's no money in it. And it costs $3.4 billion to get through their damn clinical trials, and nobody's ever going to pay that for something that they cannot patent. And you just can't patent natural supplements. Sorry, your false data administration is killing you at the rate of about 210,000 Americans a year that they admit to. They put that in the Journal of the American Medical Association, and nobody says a damn word. Don't ask me why. Trump, thank you. He's the only one that has fought against that in my lifetime. You know, I'll tell you a little story. Upon the founding of this country, George Washington was told by Benjamin Rush, being the only medical professional that was there at the constructing of the document of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence with the amendments wrote in there, making our government a limited government, giving the power to the people. Benjamin Rush said, if you do not put the amendment into the Constitution, or if you do not put in the Constitution the right to medical freedom by each individual, then medicine will be used to take over this country. That's where we're at. Also, you know what George Washington died of? He got sick and they packed his anus with mercury. And whenever it started to seep out the pores of his body as he was screaming in pain, they said it was the bad blood coming out, and that's what would heal him. They killed George Washington. I would probably say as karma for not putting medical freedom in our Constitution, which is killing us by droves. George Washington, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. That was a mistake, my friend. But you paid for it. So now we're all paying for it, and it's time to take that back. That's what Trump is trying to help us with if we'll listen. That's where your Right to Try Act came in. Now, furthermore, SR9009 is going to be your REVERB agonist that speeds up cellular reproduction in the body, in the liver, the muscle, and the bones, but it also helps with boost your immune function and correct your immune system, because when you give energy to bone, you're also giving energy to the bone marrow, which is where your immune system originates from. And this is going to boost your immune system and correct any issues because now you have extracellular energy. Not only that, it speeds up the circadian rhythm of the body. Cancer and every virus use your circadian rhythm. It mimics it, right? Uses our internal clock so it doesn't have to have have the mechanism inside of it to survive and to use the extra energy to keep up with its own clock. The problem is it cannot adapt and change when your circadian clock changes in your cells. It will leave the cancer and virus behind, making it easy for your immune system to identify it, kill it, envelop it, and get it out of the system. That's why they call SR9009 cyanide to cancer. So not only is it going to help correct the immune system, speed up the healing process along with BPC-157, but it will also make cancer and virus more easily identified while it heals your liver, which is the coolest stuff in the world. By the way, that is a research chemical that is not for human consumption. It is not to be eaten, it's not to be snorted, it's not to be banged, it's not to be insufflated. It is only by a doctor's permission for you to take it, and he does the monitoring of you while you heal, or you have to use it as a research chemical, which you can get at newsarms.com. So, this would be the process that I would use to reverse this situation. Now, remember, if you've had your gallbladder removed, you want to take a digestive enzyme with oxbol in it. Thurston compound's a good one. That's going to be all you need to give your body what it needs to stop the gas, stop the bloating, stop the indigestion, stop the heartburn. Now, if you have progressed to any of this, think about this. Let your doctor watch this video. If he's got questions, tell him to call me. He probably won't because he's God and he's too smart to be talking to a redneck like me. But if he'll study and get on Google Scholar, he can figure all this out too. Just take him a year or two. Remember to always keep your body in an alkaline state if possible. There's some pH drops that really help in doing this. I think that pretty much covers everything. Now, RAD for the gaining of muscle mass can be alternated with other selective androgen receptor modulators as your medical professional recommends. You will become immune to any of these if you take it for a long enough period. The thing is RAD has been taken up to 150 milligrams in a single dose to assess the half-life in women with breast cancer. So it is clinically safe enough